Israel just released footage of the first F-14 Tomcats lost in combat in my lifetime, and they weren't even airborne at the time. So let's talk about Iran's Tomcat fleet and what risk, if any, Iran may pose with its Top Gun fighters. I'm Alex Hollings, and this is Air Power.
Fox 1.
Now, according to a statement from the Israeli Air Force, 2 F-14 Tomcats were destroyed seemingly today at an airport in Iran's capital city of Tehran, likely at the Mehrabad Airport. Now, the Israeli Air Force says these fighters were indeed operational and were staged to launch intercepts of Israeli aircraft, though I'm not so sure about that. Now, the swing-wing Tomcat served on the U.S. Navy's carriers for better than 3 decades and went on to become a legend thanks to the movie franchise Top Gun. But today, the only remaining F-14s in service anywhere in the world belong to Iran. You see, Iran purchased some 80 Grumman F-14 Tomcats from the United States back in the 1970s, with deliveries beginning in 1976, and a total of 79 of these aircraft were ultimately delivered prior to the 1979 Islamic Revolution that saw Iran pivot away from the West and toward religious extremism instead. Now, since then, Iran has worked tirelessly to keep at least some of these legendary fighters in good working condition, with a handful upgraded, as they put it, into what Iran calls F-14AMs, which were modified to fly with locally sourced reverse-engineered parts and Iranian weapon systems. Now, the F-14 Tomcat was among the most capable fighters in the sky back in 1979. With a top speed in excess of Mach 2.4 and a rate of climb of around 45,000 feet per minute, the F-14 would absolutely leave America's F-35 in the dust if things were to come down to a drag race. Likewise, back in 1979, the F-14 was arguably better suited for some aspects of the air-to-air mission than even the F-15 Eagle, thanks to its massive Hughes AN/AWG-9 fire control radar and its complement of AIM-54 Phoenix air-to-air missiles. Not only could this radar detect and target enemy aircraft at greater distances than the F-15 could with that original APG-63 array, but it could engage those targets at much greater ranges than the Eagle could with its own semi-active radar-guided AIM-7 Sparrows. Now, that's all to say that you might argue the original Tomcat was a more capable long-range interceptor than the Eagle, while the Eagle was arguably the scrappier dogfighter. Of course, in the years since, though, Israel's F-15s, and even F-16s for that matter, have continued to receive periodic technological upgrades, and today, Israel's F-15s boast upgraded APG-70I series radar arrays and much more potent AIM-120 advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles, or AMRAAMs, likely giving these moderately upgraded Eagles a pretty clear edge in air-to-air combat over Iran's original F-14As, despite Iran claiming to still have AIM-54s and their reverse-engineered equivalent, the Fakor 90, in service. But while the F-15 has a pretty clear advantage in a scrap against Israel's most advanced tactical aircraft, the F-35I, well, there's a pretty good chance the Tomcat would never even see the shot coming that ultimately took it out of the sky. Now, radar cross-sections are notoriously difficult to calculate and vary depending on your angle of observation and even the frequency of your radar array, but it has been reported that the Tomcat has roughly the same radar return as the F-15E Strike Eagle, which sits at an estimated and pretty massive 25 square meters, versus the F-35's estimated 0.0015 square meters. And while the AWG-9 radar in the Tomcat was truly something to behold in 1979, the F-35's AN/APG-81 represents more than one generational leap ahead of it in terms of capability. But as we see in this footage, the truth is it really doesn't matter how well Iran's Tomcats might fare in an air-to-air scrap with Israeli jets if those Tomcats never make it off the ground. And truth be told, only a few of them likely can. You see, in 2006, when the United States Navy retired its own Tomcat fleet, the majority of those retiring airframes were literally fed into an industrial shredder to ensure parts or components couldn't be stolen from boneyard fighters and then smuggled into Iran to help keep those capable jets in service. And by 2020, credible reports suggested that Iran had fewer than 24 flying Tomcats left at most, out of its original 79 fighter fleet. Now, a handful of operational Tomcats have been spotted in recent years over Iran, including a single Tomcat seen escorting Russian President Vladimir Putin's aircraft and its fighter escorts in December of 2023. A flight demonstration from a single F-14 at Iran's International Aerospace Exhibition in December of 2024, and unconfirmed reports of an F-14 intercepting an American MQ-4C Triton surveillance drone before ultimately retreating back into its own airspace in March of this year. Of course, these sightings could point to several operational Tomcats remaining in service, or potentially as few as just one flying aircraft that's regularly paraded about to maintain the illusion of a more potent air power apparatus than Iran truly has. Now, this, of course, would actually be in keeping with what we've recently learned about Iran's poorly integrated air defense apparatus, that up until last October or so, when the nation's last 3 Russian-sourced S-300 air defense systems were destroyed, was broadly believed to be pretty robust, even if somewhat dated and piecemeal. Now, again, although Israel says the F-14s they destroyed were operational, they don't look all that operational to me in this footage. But even if that is the case, the loss of these airframes could still be a problem by further limiting Iran's ability to keep other Tomcats operational, as they could have been valuable parts donors for the cause. Now, with Israel securing air superiority over at least a large portion of Iran just days into this offensive, it's become pretty clear that despite Iran's sizable military footprint, including what may be the largest standing army and largest ballistic missile stockpile in the Middle East, Iran is either significantly less formidable than previously assessed, or Israel's covert intelligence and special operations forces have so thoroughly penetrated Iran's entire defense apparatus that it enabled what may well amount to be one of the most well-planned and successful air campaigns in all of modern history, at least depending on how the rest of this conflict plays out. And while I genuinely can't say which for sure just yet, I'm inclined at this point to believe it was probably a combination of the two. But make no mistake, despite Iran already losing what may be 1/3 of their ballistic missile launchers, the nation still does have the ability to launch dozens of ballistic missiles and long-range kamikaze drones at Israel at a time. And despite the air defense efforts of Israel, the United States, and other partner nations in the region, some of those weapons are going to continue to get through, and this fight is far from over. And while seeing some F-14s destroyed, even Iranian ones, might hurt the feelings of some of our inner children, it is safe to say that Iran is having a much worse day, with the Wall Street Journal already reporting that Iran is urgently signaling through Middle East partners that they would like to renew negotiations with Israel and the United States regarding their nuclear program. But at least so far, Israel has expressed no interest in renewing talks. And that'll do it for this very short episode of Air Power from Sandboxx News. I'm Alex Hollings. Make sure to swing by sandboxnews.com today and every day for all the latest in news, entertainment, and now merch from all around the force. If you got anything out of today's video, make sure to click like and subscribe down below and leave me a comment so I know what I should cover next. And of course, don't forget to tap on that bell icon so you never miss a drop from Sandboxx News.